everyone, and welcome to another review episode here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Do not adjust your set. This is not the Geek Buddies. These are the Geek Buddies, but this is not the Geek Buddies. This is all of us getting together to do a review here on the trial of the Chicago 7, this new Netflix film from Aaron Sorkin, writer-director Aaron Sorkin, on the heels of him doing his directorial debut, I think last year or a year before, with Molly's Game, that great film with Jessica Chastain and Kevin Costner and Idris Elba. But this one is set after real-life events in 1968 at the Democratic Party convention. It's met with protests in Chicago, like the Moderate Students for a Democratic Society, led by Tom Hayden, and the Militant Yippies, led by Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin. Before we get into it, though, and talk about all the things going on here, I'm one of your hosts, John Rocha, or one of your reviewers, rather, John Rocha, and I'm joined by the two gentlemen to my left. Please take it away, gentlemen.
Hi there. I am guest reviewer Michael Vogel, most of the time Geek Buddy, and sometimes reviewer, and here I am.
And this is all fellow Geek Buddy Shannon McClung, but not a Geek Buddy right now. We are very much in John's domain. If John says we have to do something, we have to do it because he's in charge. This is his show.
I asked.
He's not Geek Buddies. He's not Geek Buddies.
With an iron fist. Oh. You people think he's so nice online. You should see how he talks to us when the cameras are off.
You both keep talking like this, and I'm going to charge you with contempt of court. I'm going to put you down with a contempt of court, for God's sakes. But no, we're talking about this trial of Chicago 7 here that just dropped a few days ago on Netflix. It concerns 7 of these accused ringleaders of this
technically
protest.
8. Technically 8.
Well, I was going to get to the 8. 7 of the accused ringleaders, and Bobby Seale, who is the 8th person, who was a member of the Black Panther Party at the time, probably still is one of the last few gentlemen still alive from this whole situation. This one hosted a bunch of great actors throughout this thing, and was an incredible retelling of what happened during what would you maybe call a kangaroo court in our actual history, and has to do between these two warring administrations, between President Lyndon B. Johnson's administration ending there and Richard Nixon's administration coming in and wanting to convict and put these protesters on trial. Gentlemen, overall, what were your feelings about this movie?
I think this is one of Netflix's absolute best offerings.
Okay.
I love an Aaron Sorkin script. This was an event that I didn't know a ton about, but the performances just across the board were just dynamite. Sacha Baron Cohen, I'm pretty sure there's nothing that guy can't do. I really enjoyed his performance. Jeremy Strong, virtually unrecognizable. Like as he and Sacha Baron Cohen were walking into the courtroom the first day where he catches the egg, I'm like, who is that guy? And then like looking it up, it's like, holy crap, that guy. He such just a transformative performance.
Yeah.
I super enjoyed this movie. I then did a little bit of research afterwards and found some of the creative liberties that had been taken. Yeah. But overall, still super enjoyed the movie.
Yeah. What about you, Michael, overall?
Kind of same. When we're on Geek Buddies, which is not where we are right now, but when we are on the Geek Buddies.
I never should have introed it that way. Anyway, go ahead.
No, when we are on the Geek Buddies and we're talking about movies, we've been talking recently about like Murder on the Orient Express and the sequel that's coming out. And I think I always talk about like whether or not those movies are great, seeing that many amazing actors come together. It's like one of the things you love about going to the movies. And I kind of agree with Shannon, like watching this, I actually didn't even really, I missed it. It was, it wasn't on my radar. And it was actually Shannon texted a few nights back and was like, you got to watch this. It's amazing. And I checked it out, and just the star power, the quality of the performances, the quality of Sorkin's writing, like this was just a joy. And separate from it just being a very enjoyable movie, with everything that's going on in the world right now, it really is kind of amazing. And clearly this was Sorkin's intention. But to take this event that, like Shannon, I actually didn't know much about, and to kind of watch it in the midst of everything that we're dealing with definitely made it even more impactful, I think, than it would have been. And it would have been great. It would have been a great ride, a great, really interesting movie regardless. But I think that definitely added to the viewing experience.
Well, I'll tell you, this might surprise the both of you, but I'm in your camp as well. I didn't know that much about the Chicago 7. Of course, I knew about the Central Park 5. I knew about other things that went on throughout the 60s. I was a big avid reader of history of the 60s, but this one kind of slipped by me, and there's a reason for it. I think it was because what Tom Hayden says in the movie. I saw this as being just these hippies doing crazy stuff and the government being upset about them, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Watching it here, I was clearly wrong to look at it that way, and seeing the progression of this story and these characters involved. And as Shannon touched on some of these actors, we should definitely name them. Eddie Redmayne is Tom Hayden, who was on to be a legislature, a representative in the California state legislature. You got Sacha Baron Cohen as Abby Hoffman, Jeremy Strong as Jerry Rubin, John Carroll Lynch of Zodiac fame and numerous other things as David Dellinger. We had Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Bobby Seale. Mark Rylance was just incredible as William Kunstler, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Richard Schultz, and then Frank Langella as Judge Julius Hoffman, and of course some great characters throughout, and Michael Keaton doing essentially a glorified cameo as Ramsey Clark. So throughout this whole thing, though, I found myself thoroughly enjoying the movie, but it was later when I did a little bit of the research, which we'll get to a little bit later, that kind of took some of the shine, some of the tarnish off of this movie for me overall. But great script, great dialogue, fantastic scenes. If you're an actor watching this, you are just like, this is like watching a great meal. You're just like, oh my God, these lines are so perfectly written. The back and forth, there's so much to play with within the bars of these lines. You're just blown away at what Sorkin can do. It's a very tight script. I don't feel like there's a wasted scene throughout the movie, and that's a positive overall. And if you entered this movie like me, Mike, and Shannon did, not knowing too much, you're going to come out of it with at least some knowledge, and then do more research for yourself if you're interested, that'll really flesh out what was happening at this time. What really were there performances that stood out for you guys that like you got to talk about?
I mean, Mark Rylance, like I know you have always been a very vocal fan of his, John, but I've only seen him in Bridge of Spies and Dunkirk, and did not get it at all. I think when he won for Bridge of Spies, Best Supporting Actor that year, I was like, I don't understand. Maybe he's better on stage, but this guy's just not clicking for me. But watching him as Kunstler, I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, he was so engaging. I'd never seen him. And granted, I got two roles basing this off of. I'd never seen him with so much life, and I'm like, oh my God, he's alive. He's got a pulse. But yeah, Mark Rylance definitely stood out, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, man. That guy, when I watch a performance like that, because this is the second performance by Yahya that has just blown me away, the first one being Watchmen, I get angry about his performance in Aquaman. I'm just like, man, they need a new director for that movie because
100%. Every time. He is so amazing, and I'm always just like, oh, what'd they do wrong for? Like,
I mean, no one's walking out of Aquaman being like, oh, what a dynamic performance. But I mean, he really stood out. I was like, oh God, this is not good. But then watching what he can do with a fantastically written script and some pretty good direction, he is dynamite. I mean, he again, I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, oh, that's Watchmen. I don't just in case no one hasn't seen it, I don't want to spoil. I'm like, hey, that's so and so. She's like, what? You are kidding? Just listening to the difference in his speech pattern. Yeah, he was just fantastic.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo what you guys were saying. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen really just kind of, is really funny. It's a perfect kind of role for him to play, but also is actually very sort of heartfelt in some parts. Also, Abby Hoffman was hot in real life.
That's really
total.
Important. Let's put that
total
on the
sidebar. Total side. Well, no. Well, because okay. So actually, here's the reason. Here's the reason that I thought that. Here's the reason I thought that. So, like Shannon, I kind of dove in and did a little bit of research afterwards, wanting to know what was real, what was not. And we can talk about that in a minute. But if you look up some of Abby Hoffman's speeches or some of him talking to reporters and stuff. Sacha Baron Cohen nails it. I mean, he really embodies this guy. Also, I noticed that Abby Hoffman was pretty hot. But I mean, he really does embody it, and actually embodies not just kind of the goofy jokester side of it, which you would expect, but also sort of this very heartfelt, sort of deeper intellectual underneath all the joking, which I thought was really neat. I totally agree. Jeremy Strong was great. Jeremy Strong was unrecognizable. Jeremy Strong is shorter than I thought he was in real life.
Is that because he's next to Sacha Baron Cohen? Because Sacha Baron Cohen is really
he's
tall.
a pretty tall guy, yeah.
It was sort of just across the board, not just next to him, but just in general. I was like, Kendall? And then I just think, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, but like also Frank Langella. I think that like Frank Langella's performance in this is so, you hate him so much.
Yeah.
And you believe everything his annoyance, his flippant manner with everybody. Like you love in a great movie, you want that person to hate, you want that person to just be like, ah. And I think he sort of represents that the most, where it is so frustrating. And one of the things I found out, one of the more accurate parts of the movie, the judge that Frank Langella plays was pretty much exactly what we saw on screen, which is equally as infuriating. And I think the other thing that's great is, like a lot of great Sorkin movies and Sorkin TV shows and whatever, like there's definitely standout performances. There's not really a bad performance.
No.
Everybody is on their game. It is just one of those, what John said, it is just a wonderful meal. It is just like watching it is a joy.
And you make a great point, Mike, from the actress who is answering the phones to the actress who is like, to all these different cops who roll in there, and the female cop there who are undercover tricking them.
Daphne O'Connor.
Daphne O'Connor. They're great actors throughout, doing great work, because Sorkin puts it on the plate for you to eat. And as an actor, you're like, oh, absolutely. I don't get a lot of these well-written roles that I can play around with like this, and Sorkin gave everybody. Look, we haven't talked about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's not easy to play the straight man where everyone else has their showy roles. His kind of demure, strong state, and still knowing he thinks the wrong thing, but he's kind of stuck in the situation that he's in. The way he's able to definitely walk the line between the two in certain moments, leading up to that moment where he finally pushes back on Thomas Friend, played by J.C. McKenzie, and when he stands up and they're reading the names, or when he's at the bench with the judge and in the sidebar rather, and yells back at J.C. McKenzie that they need a little bit of a little space to do the things that they need to do, to let them be, because he understands this is a railroading situation. And you're right, Frank Langella I was going to mention as well, dude. Like Frank Langella, it's another you could easily be a mustache twirling one-dimensional villain, but he gives this guy a little bit of charm, even though he's a jerk. Those long stares, the confused questions, the fact when Abby and Jerry Rubin show up in the robes, his offense that he takes to that kind of stuff. It's just fascinating to watch overall.
I mean, God help you if you're on the business end, the receiving end of a Frank Langella verbal lashing. I mean, his one moment where he erupts at Yahya, it's just like that man is probably the scariest man on the planet right now.
Seriously. And I gotta say, kind of agreeing off of what Shannon was saying, really impressive for Netflix. I mean, Netflix, when Netflix first kind of announced that they were going to do their own original sort of big budget movies, and I think the first big one that comes to mind, I think there was maybe a couple, is the Will Smith movie.
Right.
Which,
because they acquired Beasts of No Nation. Bright was like through their studios. You're right. Yeah.
And, you kind of looked at Bright and a couple of the early Adam Sandler movies that they did and some other stuff, and you were like, look, I understand why this is good for you from a number standpoint, but these are not good movies. Like they have a high level of production value. You got big names, you paid the money, but these are not necessarily creatively great. And they've really been upping their game, and I think this one really just levels them up to a new spot where they're really, I mean, we are getting feature quality films in a way that, I mean, HBO has been able to pull off in the past, but I mean, Netflix is really doing it. And just from top to bottom, I mean, watching this movie as upsetting as it was on the political side, which we can talk a little bit more about in a second, just from a movie going experience in your living room, this nailed it. It was such a joy to watch.
And you're right, Mike, absolutely. Like you talk about Bright, you talk about War Machine, you talk about these other ones that kind of came out that were original ones that Netflix didn't really catch on. Even that Triple Frontier, whatever that one was. I think it's only been over the last 2 to 3 years that they've really kind of turned that ship a little bit and understood what it is, what kind of content that people who are staying home to watch their content want to have. And this gives even more credence to that investor who is trying to push Disney even harder into streaming, to focus more on streaming, to put more investment, more budget, more capital towards streaming, because they see that's the possibility there to be the future of a money-making situation for Disney, but also awards, right? I mean, we see the Oscars now really being lenient about Netflix situation, so Disney Plus could be in there, Amazon Prime, all these streaming services now look at something like The Trial of Chicago 7 and go, that's what's possible. Yeah.
And I mean,
that's interesting.
2020, Netflix released The Five Bloods, Enola Holmes, The Trial of the Chicago 7, and The Old Guard. And I didn't necessarily care for The Old Guard, but a lot of people did.
And Extraction.
Extraction, Extraction was fantastic. I mean, they had, I bet easily, they have 5 of the top streaming movies in all of 2020.
Probably.
Absolutely. I do want to say, kind of to what we were all saying, that this is a part of history that we don't know a lot about. And Johnny, off of what you were saying, I think that even I tend to reduce the 60s a little bit to there were the people that went to Vietnam, and then there was all the crazy hippies doing a bunch of drugs and going to Woodstock, and look, those are the great-great-grandparents of Burning Man, so I'm glad they gave us all that, but I don't tend to think of them sometimes, give them their due as the activists that they really were, and that a lot of our opinions about what they were have been painted by history. I think that just the other piece of it is you can't watch this and not compare it to what's going on right now. When you look back at this time and you look at what was going on in the 60s, where we had so much political unrest, so much issues with racial equality, so much issues with police brutality, clearly, in watching this. And you compare that with what's going on today, and not getting into the politics of it and not saying right or wrong or anything like that, but no matter where you are on the political spectrum, to watch this and then look out your window and look on the news at what we've been watching for the past 6 months, it just has to make you look at things a little bit different, which kind of elevates this from just being an amazing piece of movie watching that Netflix has produced, and elevates it a little bit to almost required viewing because of how topical it is, despite the fact that it's a piece of sort of our history. It really is topical to what's going on. And I think that kind of just it's another notch on Netflix's belt to say, not only did you get top tier talent, not only did you do a really high quality, really well made, really well written and directed film, but you also kind of had your finger on the pulse and have something coming out that really feels like it is of the moment.
Yeah, and I can't agree with you enough. And I think the three of us know the great classic films are the films that feel timeless, even if they're set at another time. And they relate to what's going on now, even though they're from another time. And certainly that was here. And I'm sure Sorkin was very clear about putting that in this. Of course, the writer of West Wing and being able to reflect what's happening in the real world and in this President Bartlet administration when he wrote for all those seasons writing West Wing. So certainly that happening here as well. No surprise, and did an excellent job. I mean, the two scenes that stand out for me are the scene with Abby Hoffman and Tom Hayden when they're having the battle, Eddie Redmayne and Sacha Baron Cohen, about the idea of a cultural revolution versus an actual revolution, and them going back and forth and then having the scene twist and turn to the point where both of them achieve a level of respect for each other. One doesn't end up being over the other, even though one started thinking they were over the other. It kind of equaled out, and then they both had to kind of take a look at their own biases about the other person and then achieve a level of respect. That is not an easy scene to write. You're both writers. That is not an easy scene to write, but how they were able to weave that in and get that result speaks volumes to Sorkin's talent.
For sure. I do think it does sort of start to bring up, and you had mentioned this earlier in the review, It also does bring up the fact that although this is based on history and a ton of it is very accurate, some of it is less accurate as well.
Yes.
So I did, and I don't. You had kind of said that as like, maybe you had mentioned it took the shine off a little bit for you.
Yeah.
Sorkin is Sorkin, and most of our historical entertainment is not 100% historically accurate. We just got through everybody writing 1,000 think pieces about Hamilton. Shockingly, the founding forefathers didn't sing, which I was shocked to find out. But
were they
sorry.
of color? Were they of color? Were they people of color?
I have to research it more. But no, I mean, so I do think that like one of the things that I had read, obviously that scene was a made up scene because nobody knows the conversations they had, but that Abbie Hoffman and Thomas Hayden were not necessarily quite as distinctive and separated in real life as they were. But I think that's an example of Sorkin kind of taking these characters and pushing them a little bit further apart to be able to make those points that he made about what is the right way of protesting? What is the right way of moving things forward? And I thought that was, I agree with you. I thought it was a great scene, A, for the character interplay that you're talking about, and B, what it says about why we protest, what our goals are, how we protest. Again, very topical for today. I was a bit disappointed. I totally get it. I was a bit disappointed to find out that the big ending of the movie, the standing and what is a complete sort of the way that the trial ends is mostly is 100% a Sorkin fabrication. Right. I get what they're going for, and I think I think that Sorkin nailed the spirit of everything. And if anything, I was more impressed to find out how much was actually accurate than I was. You're always a little bit disappointed. You're like, God, that was great. I got really emotional, and then you're like, didn't happen. Yeah. But honestly, like a lot of the stuff that I kind of thought maybe was a little bit exaggerated was actually real. So it really does seem like it was a crazy trial.
Well, and I think historical issues. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think some of the larger antics that Abbie Hoffman pulled didn't make it into the script. That he did a headstand on the defense table at one point. The moment at the end, like that, it is a very Sorkin Hollywood ending to have them read the names. Apparently, Dellinger did do that, or he attempted to do that.
He attempted, yeah.
But it was way earlier in the trial, and messing with the chronology of events to make your story flow better, it's nothing new. Like every biopic does that. But once you leave a theater and you have this, especially or leave a theater or finish watching a film, and you have this feeling of, oh my God, people, we can do it. And then you go and research, be like, oh, we can't do it. This is all out of order.
I remember though when John and I were in college and we went to London for the semester together. A friend of ours had written a play that we performed, that we all acted in this play, and it was very much based on his life. It was based on a breakup he had, and he was sort of workshopping it with our theater professor, George Judy, who was there as our professor for the semester. Right. And I've always remembered this, and whenever these situations come up, I think about it, that George was giving Jason notes on this story, and Jason kept arguing and saying, well, but this is how it happened. But this is how it happened. And George finally said, nobody cares how it happened. Like, this is entertainment. This is storytelling. And I think that, people will always take umbrage with historical fiction when this didn't happen that way or this didn't happen that way. But you look at what Sorkin is doing and what he set out to do and taking this thing that none of us knew. I mean, the three of us all came into this going, I didn't really know about any of this.
Yeah, right.
And not only did we enjoy this, we then went and researched it, and we now know a whole bunch more, and it kind of changed our opinion about hippies and activists and all this stuff. So in a way you go like, yeah, it's a bummer that it wasn't verbatim in chronological order, an exact retelling of exactly what happened, but what Sorkin's talent is that he isn't transcribing like he's in a court. Like he is taking this and putting his Sorkin filter on it and giving us a story that does get us emotional and make us think and give us the feels. So I don't think you can ding him too much for that.
Well, unfortunately, I do. And I respect the fact that both of you don't, but it did bother me. It's the white liberal ending. And I think we have to move past that white liberal ending that we've been used to for numerous decades in our movies. And I thought he copped out by doing that. There was an opportunity to not do that and not make it that whole big, white people, it drove me insane on so many levels when I found out that never happened. It also bothered me that he copped out on the Bobby Seale situation. Bobby Seale was bound and gagged for 3 days like that. 3 days. And after the 2 days of protesting, constantly being upset, constantly yelling back at the judge through his gag, that's when the judge said, take him into the court, take him into the other room and show him what I mean. And that's when they beat him up even more and dragged him back out. So for me, I think if you're going to present Bobby Seale, you're going to present the Black Panthers. And I know you showed me that scene where his friend dies and gets shot and killed and the police brutality of that. You got to show me more of Bobby Seale and what happened with him. Then separate him out. I know I said earlier in the review that there wasn't a wasted scene. There wasn't a wasted scene, but you could have cut some other scenes out between your white protagonists and given Bobby Seale another your black protagonist, and why you cast someone like Yahya Abdul-Mateen, because you want him to bring the gravitas to this role and let him do even more. Let him protest even more. Let him go back at the judge even more through the gag, through all of that. Let it sink in that white people in power did this to a black man yet again, and a judge let them get away with it. And don't cop out in saying, I wouldn't do the black thing justice, or I wouldn't do this, but bullshit. If you present it, earn it, own it, play it out to the end. That's my point.
But here's where I
brutal detail.
No, but I'm not, just, and again, this isn't.
It's not enough. No, it's not. I don't think.
But everything you said, I mean, as far as showing the way he was mistreated, showing him trying to argue in court, showing the racist judge literally ignoring him, showing all the things that you said, the movie did. Now, to find out that he was bound and gagged longer, that it went on for a longer time, that he did that, like, for sure, like, but again, I don't feel like this was a character in the movie that was given short shrift. I don't feel like he was wasted as an actor. I don't feel like I didn't feel, no, but I'm saying that, like, it was a really strong performance. There's a difference, and I'm not saying that you're fully incorrect in this, and I don't fully disagree with you, but I think that there's a difference between watching a movie and going, wow, they really ignored the Black Panthers. Like, this guy was barely in the movie and they barely touched on this and they just focused on the white people, and saying they did a great job with this. Shit, there's a lot more there they could have done. It's not quite the same to say that this was like a white liberal problem as much as it was a editing problem or I
think it is, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the first thing that they didn't barely touch on Bobby Seale. They presented him really well. He was in motion. You knew he was going to be there for 4 hours. Fred Hunt, was that the gentleman's name who was helping him? Fred Hampton. That was the gentleman who was helping him out. We got more with them and what was going on. He did go back at the judge about, like, hey, you're the one that stopped my lawyer from being here. You're the one that forced me to be part of this, even though I told you that my lawyer was getting gallbladder surgery, and he was in real life. That is a real thing that happened. And the judge did really force him to be part of this situation, and they did have to separate him out thanks to Schultz. So that's all real. But, like, I just felt like there should have been more. We should have seen the severity of him doing this and letting it go on for 3 days and forcing it to happen for 3 days. I think there is a certain respect you have to pay to that. Not just giving me the idea, not just showing me. Lord knows, do we have to see 30 antics from, do we have to see him on the stage doing his soliloquies? Hoffman? No, we know Hoffman is. We get the idea, right? You could apply that logic to Hoffman or to Rubin. We had way more with them doing their antics to make us like them. We should have had more with Bobby Seale to make us feel the weight of what he had to deal with in that courtroom as well.
See,
we certainly got an idea, but I felt we should add more.
I disagree, because I guess the actual trial lasted between like 5 and 6 months, and he was only there for the first 6 weeks.
Right, he was. Yeah.
So Yahya, I mean, I watched the movie again today, and he finishes his part about halfway through the movie. Right. So I feel like in terms of historical accuracy, he is fairly well represented. I understand what you're saying about that he endured more. We should have seen it more. I'm surprised, because the research that I did, it said Schultz had nothing to do with it. It was Kunstler. Yeah. That I'm surprised. That was the twist. I was surprised you didn't push back on that, because the reason they did that for Schultz was we already know that he inherently is a good guy. Right. He's working for the wrong people. That's the point I'm surprised you didn't push back
No,
on. But in terms of its representation, I thought it was good.
I hear your point, but that's a creative license I didn't mind them taking because you had laid the ground with Schultz. We had enough of Kunstler. We know who Kunstler was as a person. I think they were just trying to hammer it home how Schultz was a conflicted prosecutor in this situation. Having him remove Bobby Seale out from the 8 to become 7, I just thought kind of accentuated that a little bit more for him, for Schultz. And then later on, of course, the scene with his kids and the back and forth that they have there with Ruben and Hoffman by the park. Very interesting stuff as well. Anyway, those are my concerns and just what I felt about it. And of course, you gentlemen are very free to disagree with me or agree with me or see my I appreciate you see where I'm coming from. You know,
I mean, we're not on the Geek Buddies. Are we allowed to disagree with you right now? I want to be sure. No offense, no offense.
we all, you know. Anyway, yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say, Mike?
I don't know. I want to get invited back.
Oh, God, what's it? Anyway.
I do think it's an interesting discussion. And it's not just for this movie specifically, but just in general. It's that I think it, to me, and again, this is very subjective and open to interpretation. And when you do take real life events and you do change the chronology and you do sort of choose where to focus, for lack of a better word, someone is always going to get a little bit more, someone's always going to get a little bit less. I felt in watching the movie that all of the stories were sort of given equal weight. I felt in watching it, I really felt like it was a really great ensemble piece. Now, going and doing the research and finding out the actual history of this or that or whatever is where you start to get weird. And it's like it's an interesting question because in a movie where each performance and each storyline, if you were to time it out, kind of to Shannon's point, probably gets about equal screen time. Is it fair to say, well, you did it wrong because of that or that? And I actually don't have an opinion on whether that's right or wrong. I do think it's an interesting discussion to have about how these movies get made when you are basing it on real life events. All of that being said, I think what's interesting about this movie is we all really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think it is definitely worth the viewing. And like any good piece of historical fiction, it actually is it's fascinating to go and actually do that research and find out what was real and what was not, which does spark a lot of bigger conversations that are also really valuable, I think.
Yeah. I just want to see us move away from the white liberal ending all the time, the feel good white liberal ending. I want to see us a little more of harder endings, a little more truthful endings, a little more powerful endings. That the fact that this was a great moment that never really existed or whatever, but in the long run, we were repeating our same mistakes over and over and over again. So it's just like that kind of thing, a little more of a harsher lesson. I think the mollycoddling we've done sometimes has only led us to keep doing these kinds of things. And I guess I want for my entertainment now, when they address these social aspects or social issues in movies or TV shows, I want a harder ending, a harsher ending, a more truthful ending, a more brutally truthful ending to leave people really thinking about it. Like we got with Watchmen. The end of Watchmen, like just devastating in what he endured and the sacrifice he made as that character, and then seeing that storyline play through as well. So I don't know, just throwing it out there, and we'll see what happens. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
It's actually along those lines. What I do find real, I had looked this up and I had to find it really quickly, but in the real sentencing statements dramatized in some previous films that did use more of the transcripts, Rennie Davis says to Judge Hoffman at the end, this is like the real transcript from the court, "You represent all that is old, ugly, bigoted, and repressive in this country, and I will tell you that the spirit of this defense table will devour your sickness in the next generation." And this article, this is from the New York Times review of the piece. They make the point that, if anything, that is the most Sorkin-esque dialogue that really exists. And then maybe it's a little bit of shame that he went in the other route. That I do think that, not to argue to your point, but to kind of support your point, the feel-good, I'm going to read all these names ending with the music swelling is very cinematic. But that statement, the ideas that are behind this table are going to devour your old and bigoted ways, in a lot of ways might have been the better ending as far as where we are today. So,
especially if you were to juxtapose that with what's going on today and some of the things being said by a certain somebody today, I guess those ways weren't swallowed up. Those ways are still around. And I think that's a way to that could have been the harder ending, the harsher ending to really power the lesson home. But, Sorkin is a master writer, an incredible artist. So this is a film that a lot of people are loving. So that's my only thing that I ding it for a little bit, that I thought he copped out at the end there. He's an older white liberal, so it's gonna go. He's gonna do his thing. Like Wes Anderson's gonna do his thing, and other auteurs are gonna do their thing. He's an auteur as a writer, in essence, and he's gonna do his thing. So I'm not gonna dig him too hard. It's just my feeling overall. Anyway, any last things you guys want to say about the movie? Anything we missed, or you guys want to talk about before we wrap up here?
No, I think between this and The Five Bloods, I think Netflix is going to have quite a few Academy Award nominations.
Absolutely. What are your rankings on this, 1 to 10? What's your feelings on it then?
Oh, this is an easy 9.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I'd put this up at a 9. I had a blast. I think it's well worth, if you're listening to this and you haven't checked it out yet, it is well worth checking out. Really enjoyable movie.
Thoroughly agree. I give it an 8.5 for the reasons that I stated just a few minutes ago. But overall, absolutely highly recommended. Absolutely watch it. A lot of people are crowing about it being the best picture of the year. I don't quite see it that way, but certainly a nomination I wouldn't have an issue with.
There's not a ton of options, so it's this or Sonic the Hedgehog. I gotta say,
you make a good point. Shout out to Ben Schwartz and Sonic the Hedgehog. A first time that a film will end the year ranked better than Marvel over the last decade. Pretty incredible stuff. Congratulations to them. Anyway, this is on Netflix now. Watch it. Let us know in the comments section below what you thought of the movie and what you thought of this review as well. Shannon, where can they find you and everything you got going on?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's I almost went into our Geek Buddies thing. Yep. On Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, and on Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. And you can see me every week with these two fine gentlemen on the Geek Buddies.
That's right. Michael, where can they find you, my man?
I am at MKToon on Twitter and Instagram, and you can also find me weekly here on the Outlaws page on a little show called the Geek Buddies.
You can always follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And of course, yes, I join these gentlemen every Wednesday on the Geek Buddies. Great stuff here on the Outlaw Nation channel. But also, please remember to subscribe down below. As we build these numbers up, want to get close to that 15,000 mark, start marching towards that 20,000 mark. Leave a comment, leave a like, and share this video on your social media. When you share it, you tell your friends and family that you approve of this content. Maybe they'll take a chance on it, and they'll join the nation as well, or at least be a part of the Geek Buddies indirectly as well. So let them come aboard and share this stuff with them. All right, we'll talk to you next time with another review here on the Outlaw Nation. Take care until then, and we'll talk to you soon.